But let's welcome our guest, Esther. It's good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
This is where we fix the nation, one conversation at a time.
I see. I am happy to be here and good to see all of you today.
You too. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you too.
Sana. Our good girl Jano is going to give you a quotable quote. So she's going to give us a quote and then ask you whether you could, relate to the quote, but by also asking you who you think said it.
And to ease you into that, this was the founding president of Tanzania. So we're going all the way back to the 60s. I was just about to say his name. All the way back to 1964 when he came into power, all the way till 85. So it was quite a long reign. But this is what he said: empty promises are the currency of weak leaders. Empty promises are the currency of weak leaders. Who said that?
Julius Nyerere?
Yes, Julius Nyerere said that. Do you resonate with what he said? He said empty promises are the currency of weak leaders.
Absolutely. Pardon? Absolutely. Because when the leaders have nothing to tell to the people, they have to feed them with hope. And hope does not feed stomachs.
So next time we'll say, who said that? And somebody will say Esther.
Oh, thank you.
Hope. She said, hope does not feed
It does not feed stomachs, because the responsibility of any government, which is a social contract, is to provide public goods and services to the people. By providing the services and the goods to the people, they reduce dependency, they make the lives of people better, they promote human dignity, they promote access to essential services that are required for human living. But when a government fails to do that, then it has failed completely. It has lost legitimacy. So in failing to do that, tutapewa tu maneno.
Maneno mengi, and that's
maneno mengi, a lot of words. Like, our constitution is one of the best constitutions. We have a very formidable constitution. If we had implemented all the articles of the constitution to the latter, we would not be here as a country. There are countries which benchmark our constitution. But look at where we are. Look at the Kenyans ourselves. Anyway, I'm happy and I'm excited to be in this conversation.
And you're very invested in the conversation. And I think a lot of what you've said is what we can pick up on. Yes. So do you believe our poor governance has led us to where we are? Eric opened with the article that we read yesterday. Thinning pay, drop in employment, hurting families, significant underfunding in these sectors, the key social sectors, education, health, and then dropping incomes. Families are struggling to cope with shrinking incomes, with MPs, members of the Liaison Committee of the National Assembly, citing data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics showing the purchasing power of households has declined over the 2020 to 2023 period due to a consistent decline in real wages. The average real wages in the private sector decreased from 749,112 in 2020 to 686,451 in 2023. Those in the public sector dropped from 743,063 to 625,870 in the same period. Between 2019 and 2023, total employment had gone up, but incomes had gone down. Now, as we get into this conversation, we went out and actually spoke to somebody who's running a business. And the people, of course, who purchase from the person who's running a business are people who have an income. And this is what she said. Take a listen.
Hello, my name's Alice, aka Shalice Fashions in Utawala. I run a business here. And the only challenge naweza peana kwanza nitaanza na tax. Unapata tax ziko juu sana. If you want to import mzigo, by the time uklie kuje uze, unapata charges za kuplia ziko a bit expensive na venye utaweza kuuza hiyo mzigo. So unapata zinatufinyilia sana even importing goods to here. Another thing on the salaried people, you get to find out our customers wetu wa end month tuna expect like share sort bill zao pia tuwe kwa mahesabu zao, but then unapata hawafiki hawakuji kununua vitu sababu maisha iko very expensive, bills iko juu, tax like payslip inakata vitu mingi sana mpaka ya kuja kushoka iko, so unapata tupo hata hatupati ya customer wenyewe wako na salary, so inakuwa pia ni challenge. So business is not that good, ina affect wana taxes na salary ya watu wako kwa employment, kama hizo nini deductions zinakuwa too much.
So this is what she's saying. This is vitu kwa ground as they are. Yes, the same Kenya National Bureau of Statistics that indicates that there's a drop in inflation, that the economy has grown by this much, that this and that has happened, is also the same one that is reporting that there's a decline in jobs, there's a decline in incomes, and therefore there's increased pressure on the pockets. Kwa ground yako kwaje?
Ground ni mbaya. Ni kubaya. Everyone will tell you that. I have a privilege of sitting or interacting with members of parliament who interact with their people directly. They all give the same message that no one is happy. She has stated even businesses, they face the ripple effect of the salaried people, because if your payslip is cut to that amount, you will not have cash to go and buy something for that in that business. Now, there's the indication that inflation has gone down to 2.4%. Now I hear 3%. But now the supply is there, but where is the demand? The purchasing power of Kenyans has been reduced, and that's why the supply is there, but they do not have the power to, they do not have the purchasing power to purchase any products. If they get any cash, then it has to go to the necessities: food, rent, education, healthcare. And the salaried people, if I can give you the economic indicators, the actual figures from the Federation of Kenyan Employers. This was a report in 22nd December 2024. It reported that 5,567 permanent and pensionable people had been laid off. And this was just a figure from the FKE members. Right. It reported that 202 companies were declared redundant. You see how the ground is, that is the real statistics, that is what is happening. Yeah. So as much as we get those macroeconomics and the inflation, we shall get, because there are businesses like the hospitality industry and the financial industry, which are controlled by the owners of the resources who invest into that business and pump up some cash there to put the inflation rates there. But they're also still being affected because they have to pay their employees. So that's why you're seeing some companies. We have Ukwala supermarket closed down. How many people lost their jobs? Copia closed down. Blue Shield Insurance closed down. And then to go further, the CBK, the Central Bank of Kenya, has an figure of 31.3% of manufacturers with full-time jobs in. It has a 31, it gave the report that 31.3% of manufacturers were also declared redundant from their full-time jobs. If I can go on, from the Insurance Regulatory Authority, 44.1% of people with insurance packages defaulted on their premises. This is the real situation, because all these figures are economic indicators of no money in people's pockets.
Indeed.
Any progressive leader would want to put that money in people's pockets. But you find out that we are leaving these businesses to politicians. And when politicians get these businesses, they kill the private sector. When they kill the private sector, it means the politicians are left to make laws and policies in that environment which will favor them. Because to politicians, the politics is their business, and that is to make people need them. So the private sector is not going to grow. And if the private sector grows, then it means the only oxygen we have is the politics. How bad is that?
You know, many times you'll read the numbers, you'll hear numbers being quoted, you know, how many people were declared redundant last year. But break it down from what that means. This means that Eric had a job. He had an income. He was then able to contribute to supporting his family. And what is supporting family? Everything from daily food to monthly, those rent, plus paying for power, plus water, plus taking your children to school, plus clothing, plus all those things. Suddenly, you don't have money to actually food for them. And you are in an urban setting where there's nothing else.
Right.
Lazima ulipe rent, lazima mtoto aende shule, lazima ulipe stima, hata kama si stima, lazima ununue mafuta ya taa kuwasha koroboi. Yeah, has to be something that you do. Right. Those many people, it means that those many people are now no longer able to afford it.
Can imagine.
It means that if those were the sole breadwinners in their households, that household has now suddenly come from whatever to zero.
Yeah, it affects the entire ecosystem. Yeah.
Zero.
A
child drops out of school because the father lost the job or the mother lost the job.
Yeah.
A landlord loses income because their tenant had to get out because they can no longer afford to pay. It goes on and on and on. This lady who is in Utawala loses a customer because the customer is no longer able to come and pay.
The ripple
so
effect.
This lady who is running this business is then forced to close her business because customers wameisha. Landlord wake is now forced to look for what else to do because this lady who was running a business has now closed shop and has gone home. The lady who has closed shop and gone home has a family, has also now been declared redundant by her own company. It goes on and on and on. This is the impact.
Right.
Do we get it?
That's what I wonder. I think more and more people do. I think, could be wrong, is that the pain, for the first time in a long time, there's a resonance across the board with this pain point, right? Because before the salaries were as they are now, there was a certain level of cushioning that people felt they had. But what happens is when even salaried people begin to feel the pinch, and then where you have so much more redundancy and closure of companies, what starts to happen is you will inevitably feel the pinch. I know people can argue and say there are those in a certain income bracket or make enough money, cushioned,
don't feel a thing.
They don't feel a thing. I think for the first time in a long time, people get it. To your question, Latif, the only question is, what do we do now that we get it?
What do we do now?
What do we do now?
Who gets it, Janet?
Everyone is feeling it. I think she's trying to say everyone is now feeling the feeling in the blood.
Yeah, you're not convinced that everyone gets it? Or you're saying, I don't know that even you, Mariam. I don't know that we fully get it.
Okay. I think everyone seated here gets it. I think a good chunk of the people on YouTube and listening on Nation FM and on NTV get it. I don't know if they get it.
They don't.
I don't. Because they rely and they quote consistently these figures. The figures that say inflation is down to 2.4%. And unga is this much and fuel is this much. For them, la vida loca, nothing is going wrong, wonderful. And as much as you say, no, I feel that I'm making less, I'm earning less, I'm able to do less with my money, they just don't get it.
No, they don't.
Do you think they get it, Nancy?
No, they don't.
What would be the indicator that they get it?
Look at how the president...
If they got it, how would they... How different would it be?
They would have accepted this in the first place and said, you know what? The promises we gave during the campaigns, I have gone to that office and things are real. Calm down. Okay, now... This is the reality, this is the amount I found, and this is how I'm going to work with it. Resonate with the people, explain to the people how the real situation is. But what happened, once the president got into office, he went and got into another campaign mode. First, by starting to consolidate his campaign basis and hiring people that are going to benefit him politically. So there is no goodwill of empowering the citizen or spurring development in this country. And they also don't get it because look at how they are talking. They set their own exams and also want to mark their own exams. I will give an example of the faith-based organizations like run by the Catholic churches. They reach to the ground. They are spread all over the country. They come and tell you that this system of the head. This SHA system is not working. But you are on your corner insisting, no, it's working. It's working. It has to work. And even if it's working, what is the percentage of the people saying that it's working? And what is the percentage of the people saying it's not working? So that's setting the exam and also marking your own exam in all sectors, because the president wants to run, he's already in a campaign mood. He's already on sunroofs again, transversing Nairobi, making more promises, while the ones that he had promised, he has not fulfilled. Like he talks about transforming Eastleigh into London and New York. Kenya is now 60 years and has never got to that level. How is William Ruto going to do that in the 10 years of his tenure? If he gets I don't know if he'll get the second term, because I also have an issue with us Kenyans, with the kind of leaders we elect ourselves, because why are we being spoken to like that? But you'll find some people, we are feeling it, but you'll still find some people voting for him or still supporting him. We have to call out the discrepancies, because we are seeing there's now the political class and there's now the people. I don't know if there is a middle ground there, but there's a political class and the bandwagon and the people. You see these people spending a lot of money on lavish lifestyles, on motorcades. Like if the president moves on a Monday in his motorcade, that is cash being spent. The president is in churches giving out 20 million. Where is he getting that kind of money at this time to give to a church when 20 million, I actually did a breakdown of that, a little breakdown of what 20 million can do. 20 million can build 20 to 40 classrooms, because one classroom would cost about 500,000 to 1 million. So if you spend 500,000, you can build 20 classes. If you spend 1 million, you can build 40 classes. It went to a church. And there are schools in this Kenya, there are areas in this Kenya where children are going to schools under trees. 20 million shillings can also vaccinate 3,000 children, because you'll spend 6,000, it will spend 6,600. So 3,000 children can be vaccinated by the 20 million shillings. 20 million shillings can build 1 kilometer of roads. If one kilometer spends 1.3 million. So you can build 6.2 kilometers of roads. 20 million can build boreholes. A borehole would cost 2 million. So you can build 10 million. You can build 10 boreholes from the 20 millions. From the 20 million, sorry.
For me, it's also a question of when you are at the topmost seat of power, and you have the ability to do this with taxpayer money, or at least to influence boreholes, schools, healthcare facilities, all the things that we've been talking about, why then do you need to donate to a church, right? And I don't know, it feels really painful, I don't know, to see such extravagance, like you said, shows of lavishness, and I don't know if lavishness is a word, but yes, lifestyles that are very flashy, very out there. And when you look at your pay slip, or when you look at how much you're taking home at the end of the month, you're like, don't
So what you're saying is that there's a disconnect.
There's a disconnect
they
because
don't get it.
They don't get it because, Miriam, if you're my neighbor and I am really suffering, but you every day you come and show me how you're doing well, how you're buying expensive things, how would that be? So there's that disconnect between the ruling class and the ones who are being ruled. And it's bringing hatred because of the classism. It's bringing hatred. Now people are beginning to hate politicians. Maybe the politicians who have the goodwill, but it's now being branded
all of
as
them are hated.
There'll be blanket condemnation against all of them. I know we need to take a break. I hope we can tackle, number one, it would be interesting to hear how people are adjusting, what they're telling you, what adjustments Kenyans are having to make. And then hopefully at the end, at the top of the hour, maybe just find some collective way to say, what do we do now or next? I don't know. I don't know if this one has a fix now, but we can explore that. So we're live on Fixing the Nation on NTV and Nation FM and on social media. How are you adjusting to all of these different changes that are happening? Have you been affected? Do you know somebody who has? Share that information with us. We'll be back after this break.
Our conversation continues, and this is on the real heat being felt on the ground by the current economic situation. Incomes have dropped, incomes have evaporated in several households as well, and the cost of living seems to be going up, it's going up, And how is that then affecting people? We are just basing this off the story that we looked at yesterday, the Daily Nation's main headline, thinning pay, drop in employment, hurting families. And it was quoting a report by the National Assembly's Liaison Committee, which had processed the budget policy statement that's currently before Parliament. And they said, they give it a thumbs up. It's okay, government, you can spend 4.2 trillion shillings in the next year. You're talking about wanting to raise about 3 trillion. Okay, I think you can raise it. While at the same time, that report by those same MPs flags harsh government policies that will further deplete incomes, like the skewed means testing instruments that the government is applying to determine what households will pay for university education and health and affordable housing deductions. The report indicates that the MTIs had seen some poor households slapped with high rates. The report states, and I quote it verbatim, the committee noted that the MTI intended to ascertain household contributions to SHIF and classify students into funding bands for higher education has faced challenges. It further reveals that issues like provision of inaccurate or incomplete information under MTI hinder accurate determination of household contributions and proper banding of students for higher education. It emphasized that to alleviate unemployment in the country and create decent jobs for the young people, there's a need for targeted policy interventions to address the declining growth in formal employment. This sounds like you know, a private sector economic firm that has done this report.
Not the government.
Not Parliament. So this is actually what Parliament has looked at, and this is the report that they've given on the state of the economy.
Right.
And they're also basing it on reports from government data, KNBS data, their own interaction with the people in the ground. They accept it. Then you ask yourself, so after seeing that this is what is happening.
Right.
Crickets.
You couldn't even finish the sentence.
Crickets.
Right. So how are people talking about adjusting? I know it sounds like an obvious question, but that's where my mind always goes, because now you have to go into your era of alternatives. Alternative access to healthcare, alternative education. You know, I think we've heard before some people considering homeschooling, which, by the way, also has its costs, because if one of you, for example, if it's a two-income household and one of you now has to stay home to homeschool, so what are some of the adjustments you're hearing, and just how people are trying to navigate these really tight times?
The adjustments I'm hearing is, you've said homeschooling, and I'm seeing some people are preferring to take their kids to international schools or private schools. But how many Kenyans can do that? What happens to the Kenyans who cannot afford that? There are people who are, when SHA is not working for them, if they're employed, they resort to the job cover, or they have to use cash. Someone just told me this morning that he went to a hospital somewhere, tried to use the SHA. It was not working because of delays in the system, and he was told, "Yo ni pesa kidogo, lipa tu."
According to who? Ni pesa kidogo according
just pay. That is so he had to resort to a private facility to get the services, the health services he was looking for. So when you look at these measures, it brings you down to digging deep into your pocket, which has no money. That pocket itself does not have any money for you to go to private institutions, private schools. And the funny thing is that the policies that are being made by the government and by the legislatures, are they making these policies for themselves? Are they using the SHA system? Are they using the public schools for their kids?
Right.
Are the places to their roads tarmacked, or are they disintegrated like other roads in other areas? So those are some of the alternatives people are resorting to, which is also going to be hurting. But to move to what we can do, this government needs pressure. The only language this government understands is pressure. They say necessity is the mother of invention. That means you are pushed to the wall that you have no other option than to do what you have to do. So looking at the successive years, the finance bill has always been passed, and it was never a conversation. We have always had a finance bill since independence. But it was only until 2024 that there was a youth uprising that stopped the passing of the finance bill that was meant to raise revenue in different sectors. That was one area where pressure applied, and it worked, didn't it?
It did.
The Adani deal came in, and there was shoddy information about how the tender was contracted, and there was no transparency, because as per Article 227 says that when the government is contracting for public goods and services, there needs to be transparency, there needs to be accountability, then it needs to be cost effective. Adani deal did not go through that. And what happened, it had to take pressure to pull out of that. So with those successive examples, I now realize that it needs pressure. If this SHA is not working, then let the people speak. Let the people who are feeling it, let them come and rise and have their voice, because Article 1, sovereign power belongs to the people. And there are three arms of the government: the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. The judiciary has appointees from the head of the executive. The parliament gets power from who? The people. The head of the executive gets power from who?
The people.
So where is the power?
The people.
The people have the power. And because we are adhering to the rule of law, I'm not saying we get into an anarchical state and go crazy and do all kinds of things, but because we realize that we have the power, that the power is derived from the people, at this time, if we can have measures of maybe recalling legislatures who are not working, let us do it as per the Constitution. If it's not possible, then let's wait until 2027. And now, in fact, I keep on saying that let them press us more. Watufinge kabisa. So that in 2027, when you are casting that vote, you know the cost.
Make better decisions.
You know how this thing is affecting you. You see? So, but until then, let us keep applying pressure. I'm glad that the digital space is opening up for conversations like this. Within the click of a phone, you can access information. In this creation of the budget policy statement, in public participation of the finance bill, let the people come out and participate in this, hold their members of parliament accountable, keep calling out the bad manners that we see. It might be faced with resistance, but let us keep on calling it out. It is called pressure, and it works.
Exert pressure until things change.
Extra pressure.
Extra pressure.
Extra.
The thing I wonder is, how big a bubble are some of us living in? Because all the things we've talked about seem to be common knowledge for us, but how insulated is our political class? And how do we remove them from that bubble? Because even as we apply pressure, if we apply and then come off, like, okay, we don't like the finance bill, pressure, pressure, pressure. We don't like Adani, pressure, pressure, pressure. But in between, it's just lulls. They still, their kids go to private school, they have great health care, their cars are high enough to avoid potholes, and they have chase cars to avoid traffic. They're good, honestly, in between. How do we extract them from the bubble so that we're together, we're in the WhatsApp group together?
We have to take our role. And it's so sad because in taking up our role, it means that some of us will not be able to focus on our actual roles because we are now becoming freedom fighters.
Yeah.
We are becoming
once a buddy, now a freedom fighter.
Corporate buddies are now becoming civic.
Momau, Bana. We're all momau.
And you see, what I say is that government executes all of its policies through, or executes all of its plans through policies. So policies is where the catch is. And policies are entrenched in very heavy documents that when you read, sometimes you don't even understand. I think the budget policy statement this year is 178 pages. I think I'm on page 20. And you can even read those.
158 to go. Yeah.
They're very bulky documents, and some of those words you find there are jargons. Because if you ask a common Mwananchi what is appropriation aid, they don't know what that is. And then you will come and tell them that inflation is at 2.4%. This person is hungry, man. They just want food. They don't want to know about what budget policy statements. They just want to see the services. And Kenyans pay taxes. They pay taxes. They just want to see their taxes being put to good use. They want to go to hospitals and get services. There's a generational shift in what the young people are fighting for at this time. At the time, in the 1960s to 1990s, there was fight for political liberation, which we got. At this time, the young people have to come up and now fight for economic empowerment, because that is the next step we have to move at. We say we want to be like Singapore. Singapore used to come and benchmark in Kenya. So young people are taking their place in, they need to take up their place in looking for or fighting for economic liberation. Now, these policies I was talking about and the jargons I was talking about, the US has a policy called the plain language policy, where all policies are broken down in a language anyone can understand. Because if I want to pin you down, Eric, I can pin you down in paper. I can write information there until you sign here. And you will sign. And then when it's hikija kukuramba nikwambia you will sign hapa.
Fine print.
Yeah, it is.
That is what is happening with us. Because this, if you look at the tax laws that were proposed last year, there were 3. And they came at one time. Each bulky. You have to go to the committee, give your suggestions. So I feel like there's so much information hidden in there that needs to be out there.
So how
And
should
it's
it come out?
intentional.
Now, that takes the role of civil society. That takes the role of media. That takes the role of organizations, like in public finance management, to empower people, to empower citizens, because you cannot act on what you don't know. Once they do these civic engagements and get people involved in these conversations, then they will know. People knew the finance bill, and that's why they said, we don't want it. Then they will know. And at the risk of having misinformation and disinformation, we need to have all actors coming in place, giving facts and giving relevant information to people that they will use. Yes.
You know, oh, sorry, you wanted to go into it. That she mentioned Singapore, and then Wangeshi was asking us, you know, when was Singapore benchmarking here? And Singapore is mentioned so many times whenever we talk about our economic development. We were at the same place. We were at the same place in the 70s.
Asian tigers.
Right, Asian tigers, and they roared and we meowed. You know what happened? So I was like, okay, ChatGPT, tell me what these people did right.
Yes.
Because I want to draw parallels and see what's happening, right? Easy ones. A pro-business environment. Singapore developed a transparent legal system, low tax rate, minimal bureaucracy. Does that sound like something I'm familiar with here? Transparent legal system, low tax rates, and minimal bureaucracy.
And also meritocracy.
That's when it's coming. Meritocracy is coming. Foreign direct investment, industrialization, of course, diversification. They moved from textiles, which is where we were also at around the same time, very heavy on textiles, to electronics, then to financial services, biotech, and digital innovation. Meritocracy, as you've said, an efficient government, minimal corruption, and of course, policy implementation. A world-class education system. Technical training, and of course, that ensures a very highly skilled workforce. What are we doing to our education system? Attracting global talent, policies that welcome skilled foreign workers to supplement its workforce. Do we have a workforce issue, though? I do. That's a whole other one. Urban planning, port and airport expansion. I'm just looking at all these things and I'm like, it's almost the opposite of what we are trying to do. We are expanding our ports and airports. At what cost, though?
Exactly. But what's interesting as well about a country like Singapore, because every country has its issues, nobody needs to belabor that point. So nobody's saying these are perfect countries that are corruption-free. But there is such focus on progress and excellence and a lot of discouragement to try and pull stunts out there. I spent a little bit of time in Malaysia, once upon a time in my many lives.
Right.
And the one thing that you feel is you do not want to take any chances. So that also speaks to leadership. It just means the accountability factor is foolproof. And you're forced to adjust from the moment you land at the airport. There's a sense, nobody has to tell you, but there's a sense that you're being watched. There are systems. Do not try and circumvent the systems. If you do, then what is going to happen to you will be,
Sounds like a police state.
That's what's needed. If that is what will get us there, let us do it that way.
Well,
Is that what will get us there?
to finish up on I don't know that. Maybe that was my interpretation. I think the point is, because it's also fair
or
to...
is it that like law and order to a person coming from chaos looks like a police state?
That is hilarious.
See, could it be perception? When you're coming from River Road and then you see people stopping at the lights, you're like, you're policing me.
It's
you're policing.
It's a reflex.
It's a bit of both, because a lot of these countries have also been criticized, to what Eric said. So we can't also take it lightly.
Yes.
But the point is for things to...
But it has
for
worked
Singapore-
for them.
Yeah, for Singapore to get to where it is...
I always argue that if it has worked for these countries, it has worked for them. You can criticize all you want. Has it benefited the people? Has it moved people out of poverty into prosperity? Are systems working? Is a system serving the people? That's what do the people want? The people want to live in a country that is working for them and a system that's working for them. I'm looking back at what, Esther, you were saying in terms of just people being informed so that they can take action. Are people interested in information?
At this point, maybe you are not interested, because I believe we have a new era of political awakeness. People didn't feel it at the time when Kibaki was in power because things were working. And Kibaki really tried to strengthen the private sector and reduce government's dependency on banks. Now there were loan rates, people could access loans, the environment was favorable for business. So I told you, if I'm fed, I will not disturb, because I'm full.
So you'll not be interested in information if you're fed.
Things are working. Now I can focus on my work on building the nation. Yes? But now at this time, there's no money in your pockets, there's no food, people are hungry, there's no health care, you are worried, you are anxious. So you wonder, what am I going to do? You step up. You think that I have to take my part. What was the question again? Sorry.
Where? Which location?
You have to...
The question.
Yes.
My question. Are people interested?
Yes.
in
Okay.
information?
Yeah,
right.
Because we are here, we are talking about these things, and we are raising it, and we're saying, this is what the parliamentary committee has said. There's a budget policy statement before Parliament, and the next year's budget is going to be based on this BPS, and the situation on the ground is this is what is happening to people's incomes. These are suffering that they are going through. Are people interested in information to connect between what is happening in my household is as a direct result of these policies that are in place? And if I agitated and proposed a different policy, this is how it would impact my household.
I think people are now.
Very correct, because...
Are they?
Yes, because...
Demonstrate to me the interest and how they are practicing it.
Because at this point, when you go to the village and ask the people who are affected by the fake fertilizer, that I had to spend this amount of money for school fees, and it ended up investing in fake fertilizer, and I did not get the fertilizer. If you go to the villages or the grassroots and ask the shoshos, umeenda ukatumia SHA, ilikusaidia ama mtoto wake atakwambia haikunisaidia. That is how you feel it, and that's how you know it's the policies that are affecting you, because where did SHA come from? It has to be a policy. So once you are directly affected by it, once you directly feel it, now you know that this is the problem. And I was talking about empowerment. We really need to empower the citizenry to have a responsible citizenry.
This is something that has been said very many, and it's a buzzword in the NGO.
And you see,
empower.
It's not just talk. It's not just talk. Even, you see, our problems
Are you
are
assuming
really...
that people are not empowered?
People are not empowered enough.
Well, post
look at political.
June
You see, even political, all
There's a section like
actors.
Kina Janet who are empowered post June 2024. Are you saying that they were not empowered before June 2024?
Sasa Eric Latif,
they
and
keep on-
we have 5 minutes, by the way, so we need to wind up really quickly. It's not that I was empowered
No,
post
not you. I'm saying there's a
yes.
section that would say that post June 2024 people are empowered. Are they? Is it that they were not empowered before June 2024?
They were not. I feel they were not empowered enough.
And I think going forward, because I know we will come out of this wilderness, I believe, we have to hold the two truths where even when things are working, we must continue to press on information.
Exactly.
I think that's what we have to shift forever. Meaning, if we ever get to utopia, dear God, hear our cry, we must continue to say, I love that the systems are working. I still want to know what this policy means. I still want it to be interpreted to people across the board. Do we have a caller? Did I hear that? Or
Yes, we do.
Oh, Kitale. You said, what's his name again?
Kanere.
Kanere. Okay, Kanere. Unatupata?
Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, what's your comment, question, or contribution?
My name is Patrick Kadere from Kitale. Wacha niseme hivi, unajua hii government yetu ina act kama Shylock people. Unajua Shylock ni ile mtu anakukopesha kitu anataka ufeli kulipa achukue. So vile mimi naona yani government inatufanyia vitu, unapata kasa mambo kama KRA hizo, mtu unapiga taxi mtu fine ya shilingi 2,000 because hajalipa return. Mimi kama sijawahi lipa sina cha kulipa return free. Alafu unanipiga fine ya shilingi 2,000 na shilingi 100 sitaweza kuafford kulipa. Hiyo ni kama Shylock. Unataka mwananchi afaili ndio mtax, si kusaidia mwananchi. Ukija kwa mambo kama ya hii SHA president alituambia vizuri tutalipa shilingi 300 ordinary mwananchi. Mimi nilienda kuangalia hiyo charges zangu za kulipia. Napata nadaiwa shilingi 900 monthly 900. Na 500 ilinishinda kulipa. Alafu unaniambia unasaidia mwananchi. How? Hii serikali inafaa ifikirie sana. Kitu inatufanyia sisi. Kwa president alisema vizuri, reality ni kitu ya lazima kwa mwananchi. That is a comparison. Lazima. Alafu unacharge mtu shilingi 900. Ijulikani. Sasa inamaanisha hii Kenya kusema ukweli wewe ni mwongo. Kusema uongo ndio unafollow. Because mimi waliniuliza unaishi nyumba gani? Nikasema nyumba yangu ni permanent. Atio kusema nyumba permanent.
Imekupandisha 600.
Nilipe shilingi 900.
That's not good.
Andere, thank you. Thank you for your contribution. There's also a comment on social media as well.
There's a comment on YouTube. Alex Kyoko, with declining income, people have to cut down spending even on basic needs. It's so bad. How can KNBS say the economy is growing? Our policymakers and their sick mob need a real awakening. Mr. Hautena. That's what they're saying. I know Daniel is arguing like these things can't happen overnight. That's okay. He's saying that the last amendment bill had a Mwananchi copy. We do know. I think people are aware. There's also USSD codes. There's all of these platforms, by the way, have information where, and also have a Ask Me Anything, an FAQ segment. So please, whatever it is you're complaining about, try your best to use those platforms that you can say, we even tried that, and it didn't come through.
And didn't work. Esther, in a minute, what's your fix?
My fix is, we are on the deathbed. We're in the ICU. So let all actors come together and sit down and get intentional, deliberate policies that strengthen institutions to work for people. And I'll finish with a quote here that says, it was by Peter Obi, who ran against Tinubu. He says that in the state where the politicians are richer than the private sector, the only thing manufactured is poverty. That explains the whole problem. So even when I speak about empowerment, I'm not just talking about information. We can even make the private sector, we can strengthen the private sector so that money flows in this economy and we break the disparity in income and class.
Esther Nyonje, governance and youth advocate, thank you very much for joining us and for sharing with us your fix. Keep it here for more conversations coming up in the next hour. It's 9 a.m.